But I'm Negley Harte, and it's the 26th of March 2001, and I'm in a restaurant in Leeds awaiting the arrival of Professor Maurice Beresford. Okay.
Can you see the red light?
Switch it on. And then it drifts downwards to now.
Yes, the turning point is 79, isn't it?
Well, it's actually 77. Yeah.
Is it? Oh,
Please, it's actually,
oh yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
77's the peak.
And it drifts down since then. But
It's a real drift, isn't it?
I'm starting, of course, at the beginning with these three periods. Of course, you're one of the few people who can remember the first period, before 46.
Yes.
And indeed, you can remember before the war, because obviously.
No, not really. I was an undergraduate.
Yes, but you must have known Boston.
But that's 1938, just for the war, yes.
And did you go to Boston's lectures?
Yes.
What did he lecture about?
The Middle Ages. 10 or 12 lectures. And I've got notes on them, which I've given to the University Library.
Really?
They've got all my undergraduate lecture notes.
Really? Clapham had stopped lecturing.
Pardon?
Or was Clapham still giving his
No, Clapham was retired and did nothing.
Did you know Clapham?
Only... I knew his Yorkshire accent, so I must have gone to something he did in public. But I don't know what it was. It might have been a single lecture of some ceremonial kind, I don't know. I didn't know him to talk to or anything, and he didn't come to conferences. I don't know which year he died.
I think he died in 46.
Died on the train in 46.
Did he die on the train?
Yeah.
On his way to Liverpool Street, I think.
But you talked about him being chairman of your...
He was chairman of my CO tribunal.
Yes.
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 That was in 42? No, because you had to, let me think. No, I think under the National Service Act you had to declare your faith, as it were, and register. Well, I think as early as 1940. And then you were, all undergraduates were formally, whatever their beliefs, were formally told they could finish their course.
Right.
Unless they wanted to volunteer to go off and fight the Hun. And a small number did.
Yes.
But mostly, particularly since this was a phony war period.
Yes. And you stayed in Cambridge to graduate in 41?
I graduated in 41.
But you must have lost Boston to the war effort after 39.
Say it again, please?
You must have lost Boston. Boston went for the military.
Yes, Boston must have gone in 40.
Yeah.
Boston only lectured in my first year.
In your first year. About the Middle Ages. Exciting and stimulating.
Very,
and
absolutely exciting.
Unreliable.
Probably looking back, probably exaggerating a bit, confident.
They probably didn't know that.
The accent was a bit difficult.
Impenetrable.
But I managed to make notes. I remember one of the first things he did, he had enthusiasm, as you know, all the time, was to draw a little picture of the moldboard plough onto the blackboard, because he'd picked this up from Orwin's. The Orwin's book had just come out.
Yeah.
Because it was my second or third tutorial with Charles Wilson, who was my supervisor, all the undergraduate tutorial. Was based on that book. He gave me the book, handed me a copy of the book, and
The Open Fields.
The Open Fields.
So you wrote that to Charles Wilson?
Yes. Charles was I think probably the first year he was teaching, I would imagine.
Right.
Would it be?
It could well be.
Which year he started his fellowship?
Yes. Was he an exact contemporary, you suppose, of Habakkuk?
I would imagine so. I'm just thinking of the people who were already grown up and had gone past the bar, as it were. There was Hobsbawm, who was writing his thesis, I think. Did he ever finish it? I think he did, didn't he?
Not sure.
Wasn't the Hobsbawm thesis in?
I'd have to take notice of that question.
You'd have to what?
I'd have to take notice of that question. That's what American presidents say when they don't know the answer, doesn't it?
Oh, but you must know, sure.
I haven't a clue.
Well, it means not, doesn't it? Everybody else
I think he was Dr. Hoswell. He was called Dr. Hoswell for a long time. He didn't get a chair for quite a long time.
Very recently.
Well, yes. I suppose it was in the 70s, but yes.
Oh, later than that, wasn't it?
Was it? Yes.
Anyway, go on.
Well, he's been retired for a long time.
And was it on tramping?
I don't know what it was on.
Tramping artisans, I can't remember.
Was it not on Fabian's?
Was it?
Was it on Fabian's?
Something
What was
about
his thesis
Fabian's.
on? Maurice?
I
Was it
don't
on
know.
Fabian's
It's never
Social?
been published to my knowledge. I've never...
Well, Eric is coming to
I'll ask him.
the club. He doesn't usually come, but you know, there's a bumper attendance. They've got over 230 people coming.
Yes, 230 out of...
Yes. Out of
1,500
yeah, exactly. But the numbers attending conferences
Yes.
haven't fallen in quite that way.
No. Have you got the conference number?
It will be very nice to do conference numbers, but it's a research project in itself.
Oh, I
Because
see.
attending the whole time, day attendees coming into the day,
Oh, yeah.
The people attending the urban, there's a lot
Yes.
of problems
Oh, yeah.
about who you carry and how you carry.
Yeah.
I think it used to be, until some point in the 70s, relatively simple. You booked in for the whole thing. And then they started to have, I rather think you might have started in Leeds, having daily and things, so it does get a bit difficult. But I will try and do it, because
There always were day people discriminated savagely against them by making the unit price of anything taken very high.
Yeah.
right.
To squeeze people into the simple package.
Yeah.
But the only consistent measure I've used is to measure peak to peak, and therefore go Saturday night dinner
Right.
is as good a
Yeah.
measure as
Well,
any.
so one could try and get some figures for conferences, which would be useful. Did you go to any of the conferences held at LSE after the war?
Yes.
Before they were residential?
Yes. But I haven't quite answered your question completely about who was around. Osborne.
Yeah. Habakkuk.
And I only knew about Osborne because he was very active in the Socialist Club and quite a soapbox figure there, and very vocal and very striking because he had such a remarkable appearance and this rather remarkable accent. He was a real polymath. So he was very striking. Academically, Habakkuk was around because I think before I don't know when he went to the Navy or something, didn't he? Or what he did?
He went to the Board of Trade.
Board of Trade. I don't know which
Then
year.
he was at Bletchley.
They didn't all disappear at the same time. Foster certainly disappeared because by the time I got to my third year, I would like to have done his special subject, but it had already gone, you see. So I had to do
At what stage did you meet Eileen Powell?
only casually in the lecture theatre. When
She came to Cambridge, well, she lived in Cambridge.
when LSE,
Came to Cambridge in 39. You went to the LSE lectures.
she came to Cambridge in 39, was it? She came
Yes.
to Cambridge. Did they come at once in 39, did they, and stayed? I
I
wonder whether
believe
they
so.
came and went.
So she lived in Cambridge, remember?
I forgot, I didn't
They
know that.
built this house when they built the house when
Yes.
Boston moved to Cambridge in 35,
Yes.
and they built this house and they lived in the house, and she commuted to London. But then in 39, Foster went to the Ministry of Economic Warfare, which took over the LSE building.
Oh, yeah.
So he commuted to London,
Yes.
and LSE moved to Cambridge.
Yes.
So they reversed commuting.
Tawny came with them too.
And Tawny came.
She and Tawny were both giving courses of lectures to LSE to London undergraduates in the normal way.
Chicken Maurice.
And did you go to the Morris?
I'm the chicken, yes. I went casually, not regularly.
What did you think of Eileen Powell as a lecturer?
Excellent, superb, excellent. Oh, she was very, in a different way, she was as striking as Tawny. She was, I think she probably read her notes more than he did. He was more the loose pieces of paper type.
Very possible.
I've completely forgotten what they both talked about.
Those are the potatoes.
Yeah.
Yes, let's have those here, because we
I
were
don't know
going to
which
share
course she would be
Thank you.
lecturing on, you see.
them. Thank you. We're to share the
If it was 39, then I'd got the Middle Ages out of the way, as it were, because they're all in the first year, and second, the Cambridge syllabus, we'd all be doing the middle period that year.
Well, but remember, she died in 1940.
Yes.
She was only a year teaching in Cambridge.
Was she?
She dropped dead, remember, in Tottenham Court Road in 1940.
Outside Harrods or something?
Outside Debenham and Freeport.
Yeah. So I've got a feeling that I heard that Habakkuk lecture during that period in some way. Whether he filled in for somebody during my second year in what you might call the middle period, and whether he did one or two lectures on
Horseradish, please.
the late Stuarts
Thank you.
and land ownership a little. I don't know how far he would have got with his thesis.
Mustard or horse?
Horseradish.
When did he graduate, do you think?
38?
Yeah, well, he wouldn't have got far with his thesis, but I've got a feeling that he was pulled in to do something or other. Charles wasn't lecturing, but he was tutoring. Certainly in my first year, 38, 39.
What do you got, Georgia? Duck.
Nice chicken.
It's disguised, I don't recognise it as chicken. I suppose that's bone, anyway.
If
There was,
you've been an officer in the army, Maurice,
yes,
you would have been taught how to tell the difference between a chicken and a rabbit
would I?
by counting its ribs.
No. The best, the star lecturer was well, there were two. My second year, or third year, Charlesworth, Professor of Ancient History, was superb, absolutely wonderful lecturer. He died on the steps of the Brother.
Did he?
Went to see Lady Ogilvy on Saturday morning. He was quite heavyweight, and he had a heart attack going up the steps, off the stone steps outside. A chap called Bennett was quite good. He used to lecture on the Middle Ages. I don't know what on earth happened to him. He was not an economic
The medieval
historian.
manor.
No,
No, not no.
no.
What about Saltmarsh? Did you go to Saltmarsh?
Oh, I worship Saltmarsh. Oh, Saltmarsh is most important. Saltmarsh.
Now, what
And it's Saltmarsh responsible for making me, I mean, not making me, but because I hate saying all these things twice. If I tell them all these things to you now, they'll sound stale later on, but that's why broadcasting things so.
No. I'm sure we'll be able to get most of this.
Yeah, Saltmarsh. I'll have to start again. If you got a first class mark in your first year examinations, which were published, you were invited, and that meant your supervisor said to you, you can't turn this down, to a select enlarged tutorial for the group of you. And in the second year, it was Saltmarsh. I presume this must have been arranged by the faculty somehow. And they were in his room in King's. And in the third year, it was Salter, who was a model Cambridge-type tutor. Fatherly. We had cream buns, I remember, during the war at his seminars.
Psychological foods.
He was fatherly, kind. he hardly wrote anything. He wrote a tiny pamphlet on the poor law or something like that, a little book on the poor law. He was very knowledgeable and very encouraging. And Saltmarsh gave them superb lectures on the Tudor period and Stuart period in economic history in my second year.
And was it because of Saltmarsh that turned out to be your special period? Or were you already a medievalist?
Oh, I was no sense of it. I was forced into the Middle Ages. And I did the papacy of Gregory VII with Brooke, simply because the numbers by my third year were so reduced of would-be teachers that there was no Tudor Stuart one offered at all. I've got a feeling that... When do you think Clapham died?
46, I think.
I think Clapham might have been brought back.
Yes.
Because he did the French Revolution when he was much earlier, younger as a special subject. That was his year-by-year subject at Cambridge for the special subject. I was very apprehensive of the book one because my Latin wasn't all that good, and some of the work was in German. He was a good teacher, pedantic man, old-fashioned sort of scholar. So there can't have been a Tudor and Stuart special of any kind offered, otherwise I would have gone for it. I don't think there was a history of... I didn't do the history of thought optional paper, but I don't think there was one. I'm trying to think that there couldn't have been many special subjects in which English was the language of the documents, because they were all printed document based. That's the Cambridge tradition. There had to be printed documents.
Yeah, I think it was the same in London.
Was it the same in London?
Yeah.
Like Tony and Power came out of it.
Yes.
With Cambridge, they didn't have to be collected within one cover, as long as they were available in print. And I remember having to buy a fairly expensive German edition of Gregory VII's letters, I think.
Now, did you also go to Tawney's lectures? Did you say you went to listen to Tawney?
I dropped into Tawney because I'd already admired him enormously. From the sixth form onwards, I'd admired him enormously. Religion on the Rise and the Agrarian Problem were, to my mind, just the most perfect books anyone would want to write. So I went to him just to see what the Great Prophet looked like.
And did you get to know him well?
No, not at all. Till the Cambridge conference, really. The only time I ever talked to him. It was in the Gents, actually, in the Leeds conference, when he was shaving with an open razor in the wash bowls down in, where would we be? Which hall? Where would we be then?
In Leeds?
Yes.
This is before John's time.
Did I say Cambridge?
Early
52.
Which year?
52?
52. Wouldn't have started Bonington, would they?
At Bonington, and it must have been Devonshire?
Can't remember at all. No. Can't remember that bit at all. There was this great patriarchal figure, and he wore an old-fashioned vest, like in those days, which had semi-long sleeves, and he was shaving in his vest. I think I went...
What he needs since conferences went on sweet, isn't it? All these little secrets are lost.
Please?
Since conferences have gone all sweet, we've lost all these little secrets.
Yes, yes. And I presume everybody was down in the same gent, so there's no class distinction. There's no sweet and non. Now, I don't think I saw Tony again Except he was all to conferences. He was president, probably, wasn't he?
He was president. No. Up, I think, until 1960.
And my only funny memories of him dealing with a strenuous woman from LSE or somewhere, a perpetual postgraduate who never presented. She taught in some obscure minor London higher education institution. She had to ask the first question, and nearly do. And in the meetings of the society, which were normally quite formal, she insisted on quizzing the treasurer over little items in the accounts, that sort of. Nobody else said it. No, I think it was absolutely formal, straight through, zip, zip, zip. And I remember Tawny once very gently, firmly shutting her up. She disappeared after about 10 years, but she was a regular goer.
A regular goer? Goodness.
To the conference. I'm eating slowly, you're making me talk too much. I'm just wondering who else was, whether there was somebody else around, anybody else?
Well, when you were a student
Yes.
in Cambridge, am I right in thinking that an exact contemporary of yours was Asa Briggs?
Yeah.
So when did you first meet Asa Briggs?
In this seminar of, he was another person invited because he got a first prelim to the Saltmarsh class.
Right.
And I thought it was called class, I don't know what it was called, class I suppose. And therefore, there were only about 6 or 7 of us, the most, possibly 6. The other one was Airman, I think I mentioned to you. He was a historian of William III's Navy. He was a private scholar. He's a fellow of the Academy. There were 3 fellows of the Academy to be in the group. Asa was one of them, and Airman. Ben was elected about 2 years after me.
I have read Airman, but I've never met him.
He's a private means, wealthy Jewish family.
Never goes to conferences.
No. Doesn't come to Academy things. But he's published about 3 books altogether, I think, in his life. And he described himself as private scholar in the Academy Gazetteer.
Whereas Asa, of course, writes about 3 books a year.
Yes, and everybody still does.
Did you expect that when you first met him? I mean, was he very hard-working, assiduous?
Yes. But I mean, the thing that struck us most, he was very sociable, not in a spiritual way. I mean, he didn't grow as far as I know. Certainly, was probably a teetotaler like me. I never saw everybody was teetotalers, as far as I remember. Pub going was really a remarkably rare thing in those days. Mainly money. He was a poor, like me, he was a poor scholarship boy. He was in Sydney, wasn't he? He's in Sussex. We always used to walk to and from lectures once we knew each other. Because going to Jesus, you had to pass Sydney on the way back to anywhere. The thing that that first made me realise that the intellectual power that was there was his knowledgeability, but also the fact that he was surreptitiously doing the London degree at the same time, without officially revealing that to his Cambridge people. I don't know whether it was even legal. Can people do 2 degrees at once? But they can't stop them, can they?
I'm sure it's basically cheating.
Is it? Because it was the old BSc econ he did, you see, so he had a lot of economics to do.
Yeah.
The impressive thing about him was that he knew all about the trade cycle and Keynes and the rest of it, because he had to, and he kept on with these parallel. And I think he got a first. I don't know. I don't know where he got first. I'm sure he must have got a first.
Yes, he did.
In economics,
He got two firsts in the same year.
Two firsts the same year.
It could be unique.
Yes, probably. And
We had a genuine double first, which are very, very rare.
even if illegal.
Hardly
Yes.
anything since Peel.
But he didn't conceal it. But he didn't. I think he hinted that he'd be glad if we didn't talk about it too much. And whether he could have done it. Did he start doing it only when they came? When LSE came into the. If so, you see, the year behind, he wouldn't be able to. I think they let him off a year, and if you were having passed the Cambridge first year, and there were a lot of wartime concessions. No, I never asked him.
They might have let him catch up.
That's what asked me. And he was very thick with Thompson. Was it Thompson, the Master of Sydney later? Because he wrote. He went off in the intelligence corps, and within a few months of the end of the war, they jointly published this book on patterns of peacemaking, which was a commissioned thing from one of these London International Affairs Institutes, on the lessons to be learned from Versailles and other peace conferences. And I suppose Asa did all the dog's work on historical stuff on the conferences.
What was David Thompson?
Yes, I think so. Yes, and he'd been promised. I mean, we all knew certainly well before Easter the year that he had a government job somewhere to go to, which we hadn't. I'm pretty certain, I never saw him in uniform. What he did in the intelligence corps, I don't think he was like Joan and the others. He wasn't at any of these institutes.
Well, Joan and Rothko were both at Bletchley later on.
Yes. But Asa was, I mean, the most astonishing, literally astonishing things about Asa was that when I first heard him talk, rather like Clapham, I thought he ought to wear cloth cap when he was a musical comedian, because he still had the broad accent of Keighley Grammar School. Keighley, wasn't it? Yes. Butterworth also wasn't. Butterworth was Professor of Modern History. Herbert also came from the same school. Butterfield. So in a sense, Asa already knew everybody who was everybody. He's kept his provincial action very quite strongly. When you hear Asa on the radio or something.
Studiously polished, isn't it?
Yes?
Studiously polished.
Possibly.
Could do with more of a sense of humour, if you ask me.
He could.
Yes. It's a bit on the earnest side.
Yes, I don't
The
think.
second of the residential conferences that the Society held was in Oxford in 1951, and it was at Worcester, because
Yes.
that's where Asa
Yes, I've got a
was.
story about Worcester, yes.
And the organiser, I mean, Habakkuk had only just gone, but the actual organiser of the 51 conference was, of course, Michael Thompson.
Oh, was
He
it?
was then a research student at Oxford, and he was the actual organiser of the conference. Were you at it?
Yes, I've got a story about it.
Oh, well, tell us, because it was a freezing cold weekend.
That's right, it was indeed. More appropriate to tell there, I think, because it involves Eric Sixsmith and his wife as well.
Oh, to tell where?
And Eleonora.
Oh.
I don't want to tell it twice. I hate telling the same story twice. I'm really...
You want to tell it at Glasgow?
Yes, please, rather than here.
Oh, all right. Well, we make a mental note of that, yes.
Unless you're going to...
No, I was going to get Michael Thompson to talk about it. Now, do you remember the first residential conference at Birmingham in 1950?
I must have been there. But I can't remember anything much about it.
Neither Joan Thirst nor Oscar Habakkuk can remember anything about it at all. And I haven't found anybody who can actually positively remember
Yes.
And it was the first of the conferences.
Yes.
And it must have been held in Birmingham because Court had just been made a professor.
Yes. He was the first of the post-war appointments, wasn't he?
Well, Court was the first.
The new chairs.
It was the first of the new chairs. That is to say, it was the first of the chairs outside the quadrilateral of Oxford, Cambridge, LSE and Manchester.
Yeah.
When Unwin died, the Manchester chair was left vacant for 20 years.
Yes.
But then Beresford was promoted to be professor after the war.
Yes,
So-
he was reader
but
to begin with.
He was reader for 20 years.
Yeah.
He was made professor.
Yeah.
So Manchester is, as it were, is a separate matter. But the first, of course, Unwin became professor there in 1910, so Manchester has to be a special case. But when econ history began its great growth and spreading to pretty much all universities in the 50s, 60s,
Like the plague.
the very first chair was W.H.B. Court.
Like foot and mouth, Maurice. You
No, foot and nose.
Foot and note disease spread right across the country.
That's the Kerridge disease, foot and nose.
Yes.
Kerridge is going to... Kerridge has written something, I see, for the...
He has.
Is he coming?
How have you seen? I don't know.
I haven't seen
can
it.
Ask about that. Yes. Well,
You haven't got the list of people coming.
I haven't got lots of people coming. I have got an advanced copy of the book.
Oh, have you?
I'll
Right.
show you later,
Right.
which is full of interesting and strange things. Full of interest. I couldn't put it down. Thankfully, I went to a conference on the history of knitting all day on Saturday, so there's nothing else to occupy my mind
Yes.
other than reading the book. Which
You were
I
sitting there
got.
like the ladies of the
got.
French Revolution, were you?
That's right. Yes. Yes, not knitting. Yes, and reading about economic historians. You've so confused me, Maurice. Now I don't know what my question was going to be.
Tell you what, dear.
Birmingham. You made me lose my thread.
Birmingham, I'm trying to think.
Court.
Even where it was.
Yes.
It was
No
out
one
at,
can remember it.
Edgbaston. I think it had an excursion. I've got a feeling that young... Some other 19th century historians have got chairs relatively early. Not at Birmingham.
Birmingham graduates.
This man was an industrial man of some sort.
Harris? Harris?
No,
Was Harris there?
Too early for Harris?
Well, his connection with Birmingham comes much later.
Yeah.
He's Court's successor, isn't he?
Yeah.
Nothing
So
to do with
there's no Birmingham connection before that.
Well, it would be very nice if you could remember Birmingham, because that was the very first conference. And it's funny that no one
I
could
was
remember
prompted.
it. But I will get you to talk about the second one.
I knew
because-
Court quite well, you see, particularly when it came out external. So I may be fooling myself, but I think I can remember seeing Court at the...
Court always struck me as being a rather austere figure.
Oh, really? He was very shy. Was he external in your day, John?
They came to external a PhD here,
Did he?
and you got him actually quite to unwind. It was really very good.
Did I?
I mean, how on earth did you get started in this trade, you said to Court?
Oh, yes.
And he said, well,
Well,
got very interested and went to study with Gay at Harvard.
oh, that's right, yes. Oh, yeah. I'm not going to eat all this, I'm just going to nibble this. I'm holding you up.
No, you're not.
It's his fault.
And then fairly soon after that, you had a conference in Leeds.
Yes,
Now, that was because of you, presumably.
yes. I think we're encouraged to make bids, I think, 2 or 3 years in advance.
We're on the Leeds is on a 23-year cycle.
It is.
I think it was 52,
52.
75, 98. I think.
52.
You got the book.
So I wouldn't have written Newton. The only book I'd have written then would have been Leeds Journal of Commerce.
Leeds and its region would have... Beresford and Jones.
It's very late, 16.
Is it as late as that?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I've done a list where all the conferences have been, as an appendix to my little history of
Yes.
the society. This is the book you're going to get in.
Oh.
The cover, of course, is Barrow in Furness, of course.
Oh.
Because, I think Pat Hudson was born here.
Was she? Oh.
Leeds was actually 1954.
54.
And 52 was Leicester.
Ah.
And I was talking last week, or a couple of weeks ago, to Joan Thurs.
Yes.
She'd just gone to Leicester, and she organised the Leicester conference.
Did you?
When did you first meet Joan Thurs?
When did you go to Leicester?
1950.
I think probably.
She was after the war doing her PhD under Tawney
Yes.
at LSE.
Yeah.
And she was distressingly discreet in her interview. And I said, well, what was Tawney like as a supervisor? And she said he was very benign.
Yes. That's
And
right.
sat there with a smile on her face. And I had to think of another question. But in 49 to 50, she did something rather odd because she was an assistant lecturer in sociology at LSE. Which seems an odd thing, but of
Yes.
course her interest in the family and social structure. And then in 50 she went to Leicester
To work with Hoskins,
to work with Hoskins
senior research fellow in local history, I
in
think.
local history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when I first met her.
When you first met her there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we had, we had a lot of very similar interests. We must have corresponded. And
Yeah.
she was very, much nearer my age and very sociable and approachable. And
Now at some earlier stage than that, you must have met Hoskins.
oh, very well. But
You got to know Hoskins very well. How did you come together with Hoskins?
well, we both had our first piece in the same number of the review, actually. But we didn't know each other at that stage. But we were in his first published work in the review, which was about enclosure on Exmoor, was in the same year that my first one was in. And I was at Rugby quite nearby. And I'd already, that's right. I think I was already playing around with field work in agricultural histories.
But was Hoskins a powerful influence?
Oh yes, well, encouraging influence, yes. A model in a way, yes. And I believe he wrote, I think probably all the, I didn't apply for many jobs in my day, luckily, so I wasn't a great drag on people to give references, to be referees rather. Hoskins, I think Hoskins consented to be my referee for Leeds in '48, late '47, and we liked each other. We admired each other's work. We had very similar. He was very helpful. He was not selfish. He passed on sources and things. He wasn't at all possessive. In fact, I remember when I was asked to write Lost Villages, I did write to Hoskins and say, it used to be about 1952, when I wouldn't consent to do this if I thought you were going on to do something like that. And he said, no, it's not my style to have a coating. I've got other smaller things I want to do. So he gave me the green light. I think it was certainly a reference when the university screened me for a readership, which would be about early in 58, something like that. And he was certainly a referee then, because Arthur Brown, who was professor of economics and head of the department, readerships and personal chairs were incredibly secretive at Leeds, and the tradition was absolutely rigid. Nobody spoke about it while it was in progress at all to you. And you weren't asked, of course, to name referees, but that was done impersonally.
Yes.
Not the sort of open, put a thing as they do now, put a thing in the university magazine and say anybody who wants to be a professor or lecturer, send your forms in by next week or something, isn't it? Very near now, isn't it, John?
No, it's an autumn event, Maurice.
Oh, it's an autumn.
Your cycle's right.
Oh, right.
It's a winter corn.
It's a winter corn. What have we got to?
But let's step back a little bit, because it was in 1948 that you then came to Leeds
Yes.
as a lecturer.
Yes.
Now, why were they having a lectureship in economics? Did you have a predecessor, or were you de novo?
Well, the tradition.
Did you have Newt or Jones, perhaps?
No. Ever since Clapham's day, one of their economists taught a kind of economic history, probably sort of the Industrial Revolution onwards in outline.
Yeah.
And this was taught by, up to a year away from my appointment, it was taught by a man who was in Bristol as a reader in economics, and wrote a book on the chronology of the steam engine. Anything to you?
Dickinson?
Yes, that's right, H.D. Dickinson.
Yes.
It was a funny, yes.
Have you finished eating, Maurice?
Yes, thank you.
Because we'll get him to bring you a menu, because I thought you said you wanted a dessert.
I would like a dessert.
Yes,
Did we manage that?
So Dickinson, was he your predecessor?
Well, didn't have a. He was a lecturer. He was reader in economics. Nobody had the title of economic history
Until you came.
until I came.
Yeah.
And Brown, who was a well-educated chap and liked being Oxbridge, liked Oxford, liked economic history as a thing to have around intellectually, was looking for someone. Dickinson. He was promoted at Bristol, I think. Anyway, he disappeared overnight, more or less. I don't think he'd gone just before I got there. And the intervening year, crazy Mrs. Hare. Did you ever meet either of the Hares? Husband or wife?
I met Dr. Hare once.
Oh.
Although we were colleagues for 5 years. He lived in Appleby.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
An expert on the industrial relations system of New Zealand. Was that right?
What?
Industrial relations system of New Zealand?
That's right, that's right.
The definitive book thereon?
Yes, that's right.
But he was always snowbound all year. So he couldn't get down from Appleby to Leeds to teach, which is the way that things strangely were, I suppose, still in the early 70s, as late as that. Amazing.
His long days, his wife. He, when Dickinson disappeared overnight, more or less, giving very little notice, Brown had to find someone to finish off his lectures or to give them. And Hare's wife never forgot that she had begun to be a PhD student in economic history, I think with Tommy. But she never got very far in it, and she married then, and they didn't have any kids. But she married. But she made it known that she'd be prepared to give the lectures, having had this training, you see. So Brown was desperate and took her on. But he clearly decided, quite rightly, that she wasn't capable. She'd never done any research, and she hadn't got. She was a very difficult woman, very difficult woman. Ooh.
And so you were brought in to restore...
It was advertised then, it was advertised.
Restore normality to the
I was the
teaching of
first
economics.
of what's called the Clapham the Clapham Committee
Clapham report.
went round and told the VCs how many new...
Yeah. In the social sciences.
In the social
the beginning
sciences.
of the post-war expansion.
That's right.
Yeah.
What weren't
So you're
filming.
part of it, Maurice. You're the post-war expansion. You're the post-war expansion of the social sciences. Gosh.
Yes.
You can have a pudding, John, can you?
I'm just keeping a fairly close eye on
Are you
the
ready to
clock.
go?
I mean, I should probably have to retreat, I'm afraid.
You can probably
Do
slip
mind?
away. Yes, they're not a bit.
Strawberry parfait, please. Keep filling it up. I've lost over a stone, have you noticed it?
I thought the face was looking good.
Yeah.
Is that a good thing?
Yes, the ducklings.
Bakewell tart. Vanilla Anglaise. Bakewell tart for me, please.
And coffee, please.
A lemon tart, please.
And what did you say, Maurice?
I don't know.
Did you say strawberry parfait?
Yeah, I said strawberry parfait, yes.
Oh, has he got that down? He's got it down now.
What was I going to say to you?
I shall have to go, I fear, so
Oh.
nothing for me.
Got some coffee?
No,
I think John's
I
heard
will
most
have
of the stories on.
I'll have some black coffee.
No coffee. Thanks.
Two,
You heard most of what I've
two,
said
yes,
today
you want
before.
coffee.
Yeah.
2 coffees.
I don't remember John's interview at Leeds at all.
thank you.
At all. Who were your rivals and who was in the chair?
No, don't give the restaurant.
I'm sorry, yes. That's what I'm doing.
Like a professor of classics, was it, or something?
I've no idea. I mean, it wasn't a vice chancellor.
Which VC was it then?
Stevens.
Who else was interviewed?
I don't really know.
You can't remember being interviewed, and Maurice can't remember interviewing you.
Do you
this
remember
is
being-
Pretty mutual.
and this is a terribly good story for the memory session.
Do you remember what I asked you anything?
I remember very much one of a classic Mauriceism.
Yes.
After the interviews had been settled, we went off to. There's a chap who's at Bristol who was interviewing with me. I can't remember his name is.
Not mentioned him.
God no. And we went off to have lunch in the senior common room, and you said yes. He said, I shan't buy you lunch because you can put it on your expenses.
I said that.
Yes, I thought this is a funny chap.
Said that to you.
Yes.
I'm sure I did.
No, you did.
It's
I
not
thought,
me.
what a funny chap I've come to here.
It's not me at all. Why should I?
I don't know.
Hey, why?
You probably hadn't got your wallet with you. Fairly typical Beresfordian thing. Anyway,
Please.
I remember
I deny this completely. And John has publicised things about me that are untrue.
the
Yes. Do you remember the interview at all? Did I ask you anything?
I don't remember what you asked me at all. I can remember little Arthur being there.
Oh yeah. Yes. Right. Yes.
I suspect Gordon was there. It was a very large committee for
Gordon Foster's there.
yes for a lectureship.
Yes.
Jim Williams, I suppose.
Oh.
But I mean, there was a whole. It was a bit like the old style check. There
Yeah.
must have been about a dozen of them for a lectureship. All very strange. And I don't remember very much, apart from the fact it was the night after the Emily Moore television mast had fallen down. Because I'd stayed in the university guest house that previous night.
Yes.
And this wonderful Yorkshire woman, whose language I had then hardly understood, said, "There's no ITV."
Yeah.
I said, I didn't know whether this was a sort of cultural statement or something else, because it was getting very foggy. And then she said, "The mast has fallen down." And it was snow and ice on the television mast.
Yes.
That
And were you cut off from London or cut off from Granada, Manchester?
cut off from, I mean, all
Manchester.
ITV. So it would have been Granada then.
Yeah.
Well, I obviously didn't know. I then staggered off into the Leeds fog,
Was this
following directions. First time I'd ever been into Yorkshire.
I was going to say, was this your first
I knew
visit to Leeds?
Lancashire. I knew Lancashire well.
How did you know Lancashire well?
I had cousins. I have a cousin in Southport.
A cousin in Southport, and my grandmother always used to think Southport was very posh. Southport Flower Show was the peak of her year.
That's right.
I went to a funeral. Went to Douglas Jefferson's funeral in Southport for 3 years. Three
Oh,
weeks ago.
really? Yeah.
Did you know he was down?
Yes, I did. Yes. But Maurice and I first met about then, I think. Had met, and then
We hadn't met before. Huh? It wasn't
Don't
the
think
planted
we had
it wasn't the planted
corresponded, we had
do. He wasn't the favourite candidate smuggled up or anything.
we had corresponded, and I think I probably still have a copy of the first. I have the first letter he wrote to me, which was a sort of scything thing. So Joan told me to write to you because of the work you had done in compiling those 1577 alehouse names.
Yes.
And you sent
We'd
me,
already corresponded, hadn't we?
yes, and you sent me, but you didn't remember that.
No.
Well caught, Georgia. Very good. Make a cricketer of you yet. you had no recollection of it at all, and I think the letter said something like, all very interesting, I did this a long time ago. I'm sure lots of things happened in inns, as they still do. Yours, Beresford, or something like that. It was a wonderful letter.
When you actually came, the fog and the lack of ITV, you're then remembering, am I right in thinking 1969?
Must have been 69.
69. You came here in 69.
Latest
So
now.
21 years after Maurice. So you were 21 years in the pre-Chartreuse years.
Yes, but there were other. Who was the first? Eric
Sigsworth?
Sigsworth. Eric Sigsworth was the first.
Sigsworth, 50, early 50s?
Lecturers. About, he
1950?
He graduated in, well, he came first as a research student on Dean money, which was a private departmental fund, and that must have been, graduated in 49, I think. I came in 48, April. He may have graduated as early as that, or he may have graduated in 49. Yes, and then he had about 2 years as research fellow, and then research assistant, and then lecturer. Was he overtaken by Rimmer? Did Rimmer? I think he and Rimmer were simultaneous, so I think possibly Rimmer was not a researcher here, a fellow here, I think. So Rimmer, I think, was the first proper appointment additional to me. The Marshals of Leeds, Rimmer, later in Australia and now dead. Another difficult man. There's a story for him because, ironically, in view of future developments,
Thank you very much. Gosh.
he didn't think we appreciated him enough in economic history. Thank you. So he applied to move to, with Hayes' backing, he applied to move to the Department of History and became a lecturer in history. And I wonder whether Eric, in fact, filled that gap. It's possible. He was a very grumpy, difficult man, was Gordon. I've more recently come to admire the Marshals of Leeds very much. It's a
Very good book.
remarkably well researched.
Yeah.
But he was humourless. He didn't enthuse anybody, including the students. He was very defensive of the students. He got a rather bad inferiority complex, so that he took it out on the students rather badly. Tended to shoot them down at any opportunity. He married a girl who never finished her PhD in history, history department here in Jocelyn, who comes into one of my stories, the one I'll tell you. I'm not going to record now. About the Worcester Conference.
Oh, I see. No.
Which year was Worcester?
51. 51.
Well, Eric was there.
That was the second conference. And there are various people who remember that. Everybody can remember that. But nobody can remember the first conference in Birmingham. It's an odd quirk.
And there are no records of it to help you.
That's our records, of course. We can look up what the programme was.
Okay. Oh, well. Good.
All the records of the Society are very well listed and very well looked after. All now at LSE. They used to be under Max Hartwell's bed at Nuffield.
Yes.
And I did a hand list, is that the right phrase for something you find under a book, under a bed?
Yes.
But then they were all sent to LSE and they've all been properly listed and they're all properly organised and so on. And
So you're going to have a look before you come up to Glasgow, are you?
well, I don't know if we've got time, but we better check on what the programme of the 1950 conference was in case anybody needs their memory.
Yeah, but, you see, if you've got that, probably somebody will be memory will be prodded by being told who spoke. I certainly would if you told me who spoke. I've got a vague feeling it might have been Harris, or was Harris very much younger than that?
I bet it's possible.
Is Harris alive?
No.
No.
Harris and Theo. Theo's not coming to the conference. You know, Theo's getting more and more absent-minded.
Is he? He's not coming?
No.
Oh.
He may have Alzheimer's. You're going to go, sure.
UK food.
Of course.
Sorry not to have joined on.
No.
It's been okay.
Very nice.
They've done us nicely here.
It's absolutely fine.
Ambience.
It's just pointing at Maurice.
No, the ball.
Both. Well, pointed
Have you
at
been
Morris.
recording this all the time?
No. Yes. Pointed at Morris.
All conversation.
Yes. Pointed at Morris, and John will just creep away. But I do hope that you'll be in there.
I will let you know once I'm clear, but I'm chasing this French woman at the moment and trying to
Yeah.
get sense out of her.
Chasing a French woman. This is all being recorded, you know.
I know. But I mean, you know, I shall go there
Why do you know
further.
this has been recorded? Why do you know everything I've said?
He always does.
Well, he was a good candidate. We appointed him.
See you later on.
The best
See
appointment
you
we
at all.
made, wasn't he? Has anybody gone away to Eric was quite a good investment.
Forest, Pat Hudson.
No, Pat was not the same class. No.
Did she have a lectureship at Leeds?
She was here for a year.
The year I was away, didn't she, in 76, didn't she? The year she was the mistress of one of our colleagues.
Yes. Yes.
You knew about that? No. Everybody did except me.
I'm sorry. I shall have to go and be serious for the audit committee of this place and go to that.
I shan't mention that. That's been recorded, hasn't it?
It doesn't pick up things that are indiscreet at all.
No.
Goodbye, John. Thank you for bringing me down.
Thank you.
I'm sorry it was a bit of a haul,
All right.
Morris, but you know, you must get this universal orange ticket that we could park anywhere. So we say,
Yes.
aged Academy
That's right,
edition
that's
of
right,
stick
that's right,
and
that's
park
right.
anywhere.
Okay. And you'll come and pick up that book and the transcript I mentioned to you. What time have you got to get away? You've got to go back to London for when?
Well, we've come here just to see you. And so we're going to drive straight back.
Yes.
Are you staying in the UK?
I've got an American staying with me who promises to make dinner for us.
Yes.
And he's having dinner at 8:30.
Yes.
So I want to be back for them.
Right.
But we'll see
How
in a
long does the
minute.
journey take? 4 hours? 5?
Less than 4. Less than 4. I'm just wondering what we should do. I'm going to switch this off for the moment.
I mean, would it help you? Where's your car? Where's your car, Negley?
It's outside in the street.
Well, look. If you
Got
want,
a little bit of hair around.
does he look very different?
When he's animated and sitting down, it's the old have a cup. But when he's walking around, he's just a little bit thin and doddery.
He had a very distinguished, rather stentorian, rather distinguished voice, didn't he?
He does. He has a beautiful voice, and of course, when he gets excited, it gets a little bit more Welsh.
Yes.
So, but stupidly, because the camera couldn't work, we've no pictures of Giorgio playing Lady Hackney-Cuck's hairdryer onto it, which I wish I'd brought a camera to have recorded that.
Yeah.
It wouldn't do it. And after a time, Rothgard said, well, why don't we ignore it and have some tea? And so we had some tea, and after about an hour and a half, it decided that it would work.
And you have recorded him?
And I've recorded
Oh, good.
an hour of him, and he was very sharp. He occasionally forgot names, of course, but we all forget that. He was very sharp and entirely coherent.
How did he come into it? How
He'd done a little bit
did
of...
George Clark or someone supervise him? He did pure
Boston.
history, presumably.
Yes,
Have to.
Boston.
He was Oxford pure history.
No, he was at Cambridge.
Oh, of
He
course
was
he
at Cambridge
was.
a few years ahead of you.
No, of course he was. Stupid old man. Now,
And he, when he became a research student, he wasn't sure what to work on. And he started working, what was it, George, on sort of 17th century intellectual history.
yes.
He worked on for a little bit. And then, after Poston came, he went to Poston's lecture. Of course, he'd gone to Clapham lectures. He was a student of Clapham.
He was what?
He was a student of Clapham.
Oh, was
Went
he?
to Clapham's famous
Oh.
lectures three times a week.
Yes.
9 o'clock every morning, 3 times a week.
Yes.
And in a year, he started with, as Rothgar put it, he started with the Dark Iberians.
Yes. Yes.
And came through, and lots of people went. And then he went to Poston's lectures, which he found very stimulating, and of course had quite strong economic and social science
yeah.
interests. And it was Poston who was doing something in the Northamptonshire Record Office, medieval.
Yes.
And he came back and he said to Rothgar, the place is stiff with 17th and 18th century landowners
Yeah, yeah.
records. And quite why it was that Rothgar was interested in land ownership, I now can't remember, but this struck a note and that gave me subject.
A story that used to circulate, I don't know where I got it from, not John, I think, was about Poston and Habakkuk going together to Lamport Hall, which is the archive place in Northamptonshire, and being allowed to stay in after the archivist went, on condition they let themselves out, which they did through some minor entrance. And the police saw them doing this and took them both in. And when they asked for their name in the story, and the one said Hrothgar Habakkuk, and the other said Poston with his Russianized first names, they were taken off to the police station. Now, have you ever heard this before?
No, I haven't, no.
Well, I wonder where it comes from.
I can't remember.
Well, now you say they probably both went, that must have been when, I wonder what Poston was doing at Lamport Hall. He must have been showing these to Habakkuk. Wasn't he?
Oh. Well, yes, I think Hrothgar Habakkuk and Mooney Poston they're clearly, obviously arrestable. Yes. The only story I've heard about a historian being arrested was Kerry, your friend Kerry.
Yeah.
When Kerry was working at the Wiltshire Record Office in Trowbridge at the time when there was a big murder hunt for somebody, and eventually a girl's body was found buried in Epping Forest. It's quite a coarse level of the, would it be the early 60s? And the landlady where Kerridge was staying thought Kerridge was behaving so strangely. His eyes were staring. That he must be this figure whose picture was in the paper. The police were all searching for him. So she rang up the police, and the police swooped on him. And they said, "What are you doing in Trowbridge?" And he said, "I'm doing the probate inventory." So of course they arrested him too for the time.
Really? Ah. Well, that would have fitted into his later encounters with News of the World. That was a tragic one.
What can we do in News of the World? No.
I'll only talk if that's switched off. Is it switched on?
No. It's on, but we'll ask you later.
Promise you'll switch it off. You promise you'll... Oh, well... You finished PhD in London, presumably, didn't you? All off?
Yes, I
Back
did.
shortly afterwards. Chambers gave him a job at Nottingham as...
Oh, he got divorced, didn't he?
He got the...
He got divorced. He got divorced.
This is
before
why the
divorce
News of the World comes in.
was-
You're
Before
probably-
divorce was so...
It was so sordid that he got into the News of the World apparently. But worse, the rather prudish administration and others at Nottingham wouldn't renew his research award or whatever he was doing.
And he had to go to Australia.
And he disappeared into private life for a year or so, didn't he? And re-emerged
I think he went to Australia.
at Bangor. Did he go to Australia? Well, he was already very embittered, even before this happened. A very strange character. I just wanted to see what time was done to him.
He was interviewed. He was interviewed for this Australian University in London, and they brought in Jack Fisher as the person on the subject to be the advisor. And Jack, they asked him,
What was the job he was doing?
something in Australia.
Oh, Australia, yes.
Interviewed at the Commonwealth University's headquarters
Yes,
or something.
yes, yes.
And the Commonwealth people asked him this, that and the other. And then they turned to Jack and said, would you like to ask him about his research in his period? And so Jack said, tell us about your research on 17th century agriculture. And Kerridge said he didn't propose to say anything about his research until it was funded.
Oh, no. That's the kind of secretive, suspicious.
Yes. When did you first meet him?
At a conference?
Ridge and Furrow.
That's how I first knew about him. Well, what was the conference? Which year did they meet at Nottingham? It would be in Chambers. Chambers was very...
56.
When?
1956.
possibly when I met him then. No, but early. I'm not quite early. Chambers was Chambers was a very kind, extraordinarily kind man, and thought very well of everybody. Naturally extraordinarily nice and generous. And he felt very sorry for Kerridge, particularly after Nottingham had to give him the push, or given him the push. David, I remember, there was some kind of open session in a big lecture room in this university, and people were exhibiting something of their work. I don't know what it was. And David suddenly came into this discussion and pinned up a photostat, that is a Xerox it now would be, translating into your generation, pinned it on the wall. And he said, look, this shows that Kerridge was right and Beresford was wrong. I don't think he was aware that I was there particularly. So he pinned this up. It was quite big. It was about as big as that picture. He said, this goes back to the reign of Edward I. Now, Chambers had never done any early history. And there are several reasons you couldn't see it was first of all, what handwriting was on it was an 18th century sort of script. And there was also printing on it. And he said, look, it's showing ridge and furrow. And again, as soon as you looked at it, it became very unlikely because the scale of the map was such that it covered about 200 miles of square land, somewhere in the Midlands. And he said, look, if you go to that particular place, you can see the ridge and furrow on the ground, and contrary to what Beresford said, it's going in the opposite direction. Well, I tried to explain to David very kindly. Kerridge was totally uncartographic. Kerridge was the most incredibly document-based. He had foot and note disease in a remarkable way. But David was taken in by this and was very indignantly defending Kerridge. I never quite saw the point why it couldn't be Edward I. Kerridge and I never had public arguments. It's never all been quite pleasant, relatively pleasant, never pleasant to anybody, but relatively pleasant to me. He's never attempted to scratch my eyes out. The only Kerridge in is that I've twice published the postcard he sent me on the eve of publication of Lost Villages, saying that I hear you have a book coming out, and if it contains what I believe, I shall have no alternative but to expose you once again. I printed that, but he's never replied. I've broken copyright because I'm told technically the copyright is his, even though he sent the postcard to me.
Yes.
But we've never had open warfare.
I was present on the occasion at a conference, I think on the new draperies at East Anglia, where he corrected Nora Carus Wilson.
Oh yes.
And she practically frowned because she wasn't, of course, used to being corrected.
No.
When she rejected his correction, and he insisted that he was right at some point about dying, and she tossed her head, and she said, you know, I've done it at home in my kitchen sink myself. Must have been the only
she had a kitchen sink.
It was the only thing she ever did in her kitchen sink, because of course she had a housekeeper.
Oh yeah.
She was the only person I've ever known who had a housekeeper.
Yes, so she was a lady.
She was a lady.
She had the accent, cloth. She always pronounced cloth.
Yes, Cloth Towns.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
But I don't know whether you know this also. But at one stage I was encouraged to try to collect contributors for an Eleanor Fishrift. Do you know about this?
No, I don't.
Which was going to be, like Poston's, a special number of the review, just that.
No, I don't.
So whoever was editor of the review by then, who would be editor after Poston?
Well, Habakkuk.
Could it be?
Then Hartwell.
Yes. Anyway, I got encouragement to do this, you see. So they said, rock round and try. And everybody I wrote to said no.
Yes.
And one or two said why, they said no. And they just hated Eleanor's guts. And it was an LSE group, as you can imagine, who mainly felt this.
There is a contribution in this book from Tony Bridbury,
Oh,
who I haven't seen for years.
no, of course he's in there. He was one of those who said,
Oh yes, they had a little love lost there.
no love lost at all.
Yeah,
Oh, he's written in there, has he?
he has.
Oh,
Very
does he
extensive.
mention Eleanor?
No, it's almost incomprehensible.
Oh,
Pat Hudson had a lot of problems with him as a contributor because he refuses to provide a CV, even in a few sentences, because at the end of each piece,
yes, she asked for a
says,
CV, didn't she? Yes.
you have to reveal your date of birth
Yes.
and your institution. Well, it's important when you're writing what people have to place
Indeed.
in generation.
Yes.
So he refused to reveal his date of birth, and it says he objects to CVs, even on job applications, arguing that where he went to kindergarten matters far more than where he went to college. I mean, it's probably true, but it's characteristically eccentric
And catty, slightly.
and catty.
Yes.
But it says here he was Professor of Medieval History at the LSE, but of course he never was.
No. Does he say he was?
She says he was.
Pat's got it wrong with him.
Yes, Pat's got it wrong.
Silly girl.
Well, that's a slightly embarrassing thing. So no, he doesn't say anything. It's a full of sort of eccentric Bridbury-esque aperçus. Is that the right word?
Oh yeah.
So there's nothing about any person at all. I mean, he begins by saying. Virtually everything that human beings have ever done either went unrecorded at the time, or if recorded, has not survived. So, I mean, very characteristic.
Yeah.
Perfectly true.
Yeah.
But of course, he does have these eccentric views. No, he's never made a professor, even though, of course, he wrote quite a number of books.
Yes. You've got a professor these days easily.
Well, yes, but he was very well known for not going into.
Yeah.
I mean, he came into LSE about once a term.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think even at LSE, people noticed that he wasn't around.
This was part of the rebellion against Eleanor, wasn't it?
Oh yes, of course yes. I remember, when I was young and impressionable, I remember him saying to me of her, that referring to her as that acidulated bitch.
Yes, yes.
Well, of course, I eventually got to know how colleagues all loved each other.
Yes.
But I was very shocked at first. And of course, there was little love lost with Olive Coleman, who was the third of the triumvirate of medievalists at LSE.
Course, yes.
And Olive, for many years, was Carris's, starting off as Carris's research assistant.
Yes.
But Nora treated her absolutely appallingly.
Yes. Is she still alive, Olive?
Well, do you know, I don't know.
I don't know.
I last heard that she was running a post office in Somerset.
Ah.
But whether she still is,
Yes.
I don't know. I used to be quite good friends with her, but she's sort of totally disappeared from my
Has Habakkuk written a piece in there?
No, he hasn't, but Max Hartwell has.
Oh, yeah. Because Pat sent me Max's as an example
Oh, did she?
to go on. So I've read Max's.
Oh, you have?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, she's published them all here. It's the biggest pamphlet you've ever seen.
Yes,
It's
it
250,000 words.
Yes.
And it's called the Conference Pamphlet.
Amazing.
And it's got that...
It'll be in her publications list, presumably, won't it?
Oh, well,
Editorially.
it deserves to be. Yes, it deserves to be.
With 5 stars on the...
And I've written a little history of the society. There's the graph, you see.
Oh, yes,
which
I see.
you've got the version
Oh, I
of.
see. Yes.
So it's only a little.
Oh, yes, I was one question. What on earth are these funny shields on the front of the review?
They're here. They're to represent various bits of economic history. There's a sheep on one of them, Maurice.
Is there? I've had even see what they were.
It was all pre-foot. Well, I think they're trade tokens. They're late 18th century trade tokens.
Did you put them together?
I think it comes from Oliver Westall.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the 75th anniversary logo.
Yes.
And they all represent, I mean, the sheep represents something, and then there's a ship, you see, and there's a fish,
Yes.
and there's some sort of machinery of some sort. They all sort of show economic activity.
Yeah.
That's the idea of it. I don't quite know the significance of the... What is the significance of the person on the horse? Is that a sovereign? Perhaps it's intended to be... Is it a sovereign?
St. George.
Is that what's on a sovereign? And it's a 1926 sovereign.
Oh,
Perhaps
yes,
it's
that's
the
it,
gold
yes.
standard or something, perhaps.
Don't know
So
what
they're
was
all
on.
different sorts
I
of...
never possessed a sovereign in 1926, so I don't know what it looked like. But they've all got dates on. Some don't.
Yeah.
Have they all got dates on? That
No,
helps.
some do. It's not the dates, it's what they show. So they're all showing
Yes.
different types of economic activity. So
But they
that's-
also have a date in common, don't they? Or not? No?
I think the dates are not significant. I think.
Ah,
But the sovereign must be 1926 to give the year of the foundation.
yes.
Yeah.
And these are all waiting for us, are they?
Yes.
We have to buy them, I take
No,
it.
contributors get given them.
Oh, there'll all be one
It
waiting for
says
us.
on it £15, but I'm told at the conference you can buy it for £7.
I see.
But the contributors all get given them. But it's an absolutely fascinating thing, so I'm going to buy several.
You get Christmas presents, people.
Christmas presents. Yeah. No, it really is quite interesting.
You
This-
put it alongside the name and nature of economic... Did you title yours The Name and Nature of Economic History? No.
No, mine's called My Path to Economic History, and I talk about growing up in...
No, I
Lancashire.
don't mean in here.
Oh.
The volume of inaugurals you did.
Oh yes, that's simply called The Study of Economic
Oh, The
History.
Study of Economic
The
History.
Study of Economic History.
Yes.
Yes.
And the last
Yes.
of those is...
It comes up to Peter Mathias living with the neighbours.
Oh, yeah.
His Oxford inaugural in something like 68 or 69, just before the thing was published. There have been 20 odd since. I've got a second volume.
Coming out?
Not coming out, but I mean, could come out.
Yes.
I wrote to Frank Cass to ask if he was interested in the second volume, and I got no reply. Although the book is still, believe it or not, in print.
Is it?
And I think he's a bit embarrassed because, of course, I never got any money
No.
for it at all. I didn't think I deserved any money. But, I mean, he never paid anything of any sort.
What's it say in the front for copyright? Is it copyright of the authors?
Oh,
is
the
it?
copyright belongs to the authors, yes.
Yeah.
I don't think, yes. And I forget who has the copyright to my introduction. But a second volume surveying, I mean, I would like to do it. Perhaps I
Yes,
should
because
write
a
to
lot to
somebody
survey,
else.
and climb and fall, really.
I should find some other publisher to do
Yes.
it. And most of them are quite interesting, not all of them. Derek Orcroft gave one of the most boring... Is that still on? I suppose it is.
It's on, but you
Derek
can say it.
Orcroft gave one of the most boring inaugural lectures possible.
He's on my board's list, anyway.
Talking about bores, the other person who's coming to Glasgow is W.W. Rostow.
Oh, yes. He was at some of the early conferences. He was brought over as a sort of a great American figure.
Oh.
At the height of his fame, I remember. But I haven't seen him for 20 or 30 years.
Well, he came to the last Glasgow conference,
Yeah.
which was not 20 or 30 years ago, which was in... I've done a list, Maurice, here, at the back of my history, because it's so useful to help people's memories. Glasgow in 84. Well, that is nearly 20 years ago. He came and gave a very boring lecture. And he was very difficult to talk to because his wife is even more boring than he is. And she has that sort of hair that American air hostesses have, that looks as if it would break if you touch it.
Yes.
And he...
She looks a dolly, you mean, or
She
a
looked
bimbo.
like an aging dolly.
Aging dolly.
And she's, of course, herself a professor of economics, so not, I think, of any particular distinction. But Rostow, rather confusingly, refers to her all the time as Professor Rostow. And I thought for a time that he'd gone so self-important that he was talking about himself in the third person. And he would say things like, Professor Rostow would like another cup of coffee.
Yes.
And I thought, what an extraordinary... And it turned out to be his wife who was referred to as...
For a man with enormous fame earlier, he's levelled off appallingly, hasn't he?
Well, he's written enormous... He's in here too.
Yes.
Giorgio was reading it in the car. He's the only one with graphs in his...
Really?
No, tables actually.
Oh, tables, is it?
Graphs?
Yeah,
It's
there are
almost-
some tables, yeah.
Oh.
It's almost... Well,
Graphs as well as tables?
No, just tables.
Oh, just
I
tables.
think 3 tables.
Joan Thirsk is in here. Michael Thompson, very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
So I think the more autobiographical ones are the interesting. But Rostow doesn't write autobiographically. He writes, it's called The Very Long Period is With Us Every Day of Our Lives. And he keeps quoting... no, not graphs, no.
There's a
Tables like this.
Oh.
You see, and they're about fertility rates in South Korea and Indonesia. How it fits in, it's not absolutely clear how it all fits together. Yeah.
I've got an Indonesian lodger at the moment.
Oh gosh, is that a student?
No, he's a member of staff of a university. He's over for 3 years.
Oh.
I'm putting him up for this year
Uh-huh.
in the attic flat.
Uh-huh.
Very nice chap.
Uh-huh.
Very interesting. I've learnt a lot. Tiny little chap, much smaller than you. Looks about 16, he's in his 30s.
Yes.
I'm taking him for his first Shakespeare play tomorrow night, actually. He's never seen Shakespeare. I'm taking him to see the Comedy of Errors tomorrow night.
Now, I'm going to pay the bill, and we're going to begin taking you back.
Yes, righto. If that seems much convenient for me.
Terrific, and we'll record a little bit more with you, and then we'll drive you back to the station.
Thank you. Oh, I'm stiff from hurry. John really hurried me. And
Oh dear, are you so
my leg muscles.
Sit there. Is it going? Well, after the restaurant where we had lunch with, Leeds, where I had lunch with Professor Maurice Beresford and also Professor John Charteris. John Charteris has now gone off to a meeting, and we've come to Professor Beresford's house in Leeds. And here is Professor Beresford talking to us again. Now, Maurice, we began by looking at the figures, the 3 periods of the society, and obviously we shall deal with the first one first. And you're one of the relatively few people who can still remember the first phase of the society before 1946. Yeah. And your introduction to economic history came, have I got this right, with going to the lectures given by Professor Poston soon after he became professor in Cambridge.
Yes. I think the first time I probably heard the word economic history, because we did ordinary straight history at school, and although by that time I was infected with enthusiasm for Tawney, Religion on the Rise particularly, the man who taught me was a very recent Oxford graduate, and therefore had done straight history. Oxford being a place then where the word economic history was not mentioned, hardly. And so he never called it economic history. So I was rather nervous when I got to Cambridge in 1938 and discovered that horrifically all the first year courses were medieval, and I hadn't got a scrap on the Middle Ages at school, not a single scrap. And worse, that one of them was a school economic history, and I didn't know any economics. So this was very frightening, so I went to Poston's lectures with some trepidation. And there was this remarkable-looking, ginger-haired, half-bald man, small, scraggy, fast-talking, with a very strange accent indeed. But very interesting things to talk about, because he immediately began to talk about things that I was interested in, the countryside, fields, ploughing, people. He drew diagrams on the board and gave a very interesting course of lectures. I suppose they would be terms lectures. I'm not sure whether they were 1 term or 2. I have kept all my lecture notes actually from being an undergraduate, and they are now in the Leeds University Library.
So it was possible to follow something of what Poston said. It wasn't all incomprehensible.
Oh no, no. No, we had to keep your ears really pinned back to correct for the accent, but it was they were well constructed, and you could see where he was going, and by the end of the lecture he'd finished that subject and then he started on the next one as he went through the Middle Ages. So they were good to go to, but I didn't think I would ever never had idea that I would devote my life to that, because I didn't know what the rest of economic history was about. I'd hardly ever heard of the Industrial Revolution, as it were, academically. These weren't a sweetener in that way.
The other lecturer whose lectures you attended, would it be in the same year, who influenced you, was the lectures given by Saltmarsh. Was that the same year or the next year?
He was in exile, wasn't he, by then, with London University?
Well, that was the next thing I was going to ask you about, because after 39, the LSE comes, and you take advantage of going to Tawney's lectures.
Well, I didn't go to Tawney until the next year then, until 39, right. 40
right.
year. And I was already infected with with Tawnyism from school and reading. To go and see the man in the flesh was just an additional piece of curiosity, and lectures clashed. Their lecture timetable and ours wasn't integrated, so as far as lecture going was concerned, I doubt if I went to more than 2 or 3 of Tawny's going back, and 1 or 2 of Eileen Power's. I don't think I went to anybody else in exile from London at the time.
What did you think of Eileen Power as a lecturer?
Oh, she was wonderful. Her personality was indescribable. She was, well, I think she was the most handsome, I mean, I'm a bachelor, she was the most handsome and most attractive woman, I think. She was beautifully dressed and well made up, and her hair beautifully done. She spoke well, she spoke with enthusiasm. She was very remarkable. She wasn't mannish, she was very feminine. But a very attractive figure. I've completely forgotten what she was talking about. It was some fairly straightforward medieval. Rather, I knew about her from her Medieval People, which was in Penguin by then, and although at that time I wasn't interested in the architecture of the countryside at all, that came later in my life, I did find it very readable, and it had pictures in, a thing I've always tried to emulate. So I approved of Eileen, and then of course she died quite suddenly while I was still an undergraduate.
Yes. Now you also went to Salt Marshes.
Yes, Salt Marsh was, I suppose, the biggest intervener in my life, for the best. I better explain that the way the Cambridge system worked, if you'd got a first in your preliminary, that is your first year examinations, you were invited, which translated English meant really you were commanded, advised by your supervisor to accept the invitation, to go to a class which met once a week for the whole of the second year. The whole of the second year. And in the second year, the syllabus was now 1485 to 1688 in all the subjects we were doing. The Middle Ages had been passed, and Saltmarsh did this. He was a remarkable man, an eccentric in appearance, a King's Fellow of the old sort, bursar of the college at the time, and being bursar of the college, and therefore having to deal with the college estates, he knew about the maps and the written surveys of the college estates. He was a close friend of Darby's, who was the historical geographer, who was also a fellow of King's, and they together, before 1938, had published an article in Economic History, that is the rival and predecessor of the Economic History Review, the eventual swallower of it, which I have to come to in a moment because it's part of the story, part of the Beresford story. Therefore Saltmarsh was also keen on going out in the countryside, and he and Darby had explored quite a lot of Cambridgeshire but by then, Saltmarsh liked to cram I think there were 6 of us, must be 6. He had an open car, but he perhaps there were 5 of us who'd got firsts and were together. There was Asa Briggs, John Ehrman and myself. It was an interesting collection of people. We certainly didn't all think we should finish as fellows of the Academy, of the British Academy, that is. Saltmarsh's technique was not to repeat his lectures, but to pick up little themes and develop them and talk about sources. Although we weren't actually introduced to manuscript sources as such, we didn't have paleography instruction. But before the second term, we were instructed that when we came back, we should each produce a short 5 or 6 page essay on some aspect of the local history of the place we came from.
Oh.
That really started me off, because I went home and Asa went home to Keighley, and his I remember was about some 19th century Keighley aspect of work, because Asa in his way was another kind of local historian from me, but his work was very much based on local history. So when we came back, in the appropriate week of the second term, we delivered our bits. And I had the appalling good luck of discovering that my home town, small market town in the 16th century, Sutton Coldfield, had a medieval field system that was just like the one that Saltmarsh and Derby had just published about 2 or 3 years earlier, infield, outfield, on a Norfolk manor, I think theirs was called. And at that time, the great fashion was, and Poston was keen on this, was local differences between places. Poston's line very much was to destroy the conventional by insisting on the uniform everywhere and going over to local differences. And it was quite fashionable in a number of topics to emphasise, without local history ever being used as a word, and certainly in Cambridge nobody taught it, no questions in the exams, no books to read on local history as such, but so the work of all these local history publishing societies were totally unknown. They filled shelves in the library that at that stage we never went near for straight academic purposes. So I came back the second term and read this paper on the similarities between Sutton Coldfield and the Midlands, when you had an infield and an outfield, a mixture of 3-field system with rotating cultivation and permanently waste parts of the manor. I won't go into why that was important, but it did turn out to be a very important difference, and later similar things have turned up, particularly in East Anglia, not so many in the Midlands. So I wrote this up and delivered it, and by the end of the year said goodbye to Saltmarsh and came back in my third year, to do the 1688 plus period, and went to a rather similar class run by Salter, who was much more a thought and culture type topic. His only stimulus, I think, was to be nice to me, because Cambridge was still a rather cold place socially to a provincial grammar school boy, particularly one who was neither a member of the Church of England nor rowed. Jesus College, where I was devoted to 2 gods, rowing, and the one in the Old and New Testament, and if you weren't really interested in either of those two, you weren't very much. And I was amazed how respectable dons in history like Bernard Manning, whom I admired very much, a medievalist, senior tutor, a very nice man, and was a very good essay setter and very good listener to essays, because I had supervisors who didn't listen, who just said, "Thank you very much," and that was that. But Bernard had it planned. But to my amazement, Bernard was crazy about rowing, not about doing it. The poor chap only had 1 lung. He lost a lung early in life, the use of a lung, and he had an almost pathetic passion, not a sexual passion. There were no sexual passions visible in my day in Cambridge, any more than there were spies visible. I'm told that they existed, but that's what the historians say. Honestly, it was invisible. But Charles Wilson, you see, had the same passion.
Ah, yes. Now, you were taught by Charles Wilson.
Yes, Charles.
Must have been quite early in his
just become a
teaching
fellow
career.
my first year. And for my first year, which I think was his only year when he overlapped with me, because he went off to the civil service at the outbreak of war, Charles ran very good tutorials, again, a do-it-yourself type tutorial, and he, in fact, had put into my hands a brand new copy, possibly a review copy, of, no, I think in those days he'd bought one. In those days, academic tutors could afford to buy books as they came out, and he had the Orwin's book on the open fields, and he showed it to me and said, "I've just been reading this, and it's very interesting. Go back and just come back and tell us next time what it's about." So I did that, and I liked it because it had maps, but I didn't associate it with the ground. It was only Saltmarsh who really started prodding me into believing that, because of the King's estate maps that match things in the fields, that you could put the two together. The Orwins, in fact, curiously enough, even I think when Joan Thirsk produced her amended versions of the Orwin's Open Fields, she continued their scepticism about the visible things, that is the ridge and furrow, having anything to do with what you could see on the ground now. So in a sense that was a dormant seed. After Saltmarsh...
So what did Saltmarsh take you all to see?
Yeah.
You went off in his car.
Yes, he took us to Grantchester.
And what were you going to look at?
We looked at ridge and furrow.
Looking at ridge and furrow.
He had these 14th century surveys of the estates, which he translated and transcribed, and therefore you had a piece of paper with about the celliones, cellione by cellione, strip by strip, of a section of the open fields of Grantchester. And he'd worked out where they were. They were in fact between the church and the river. I have a photograph I used to use in slides, I took many years later, of that. And there is an photograph by coincidence of that area in one of the Royal Commission on Historical Monuments volumes, the Cambridgeshire one, not from the time when I was a commissioner, but before I was a commissioner, where you can actually see the up and down. So within sight of the Rupert Brook Church, Saltmarsh took us out and we walked up and down this field, and he said I couldn't believe that the 14th century and now could be visible together. You know, it seemed impossible. It never occurred to me, and I could see later why people might be sceptical. But there we were. But he did, in a way, lead me to looking at local maps and looking at the fields in Cambridgeshire very slightly. But I had other things to do between then and finals.
But that was the beginning of really quite a passion that you had for the rest of your life, for that sort of thing.
Yes,
but what about poor Asa Briggs? Had Asa Briggs ever seen a field? Did he? He didn't know anything about the 14th century or fields, did he?
No, I think what he talked about was something much more like a mill town and a 19th century textile life. He probably had walking as a recreation. He was no more athletic than I was. He didn't row, he didn't play football. So he like many of our generation, I suspect that walking was one of his recreations, not quite as passionately as mine was, and I don't think extending to youth hosteling, which is where I really got into it. But
Asa probably wanted some honey for his tea.
Probably. And he was very busy, of course, cheating the system by working for a London degree at the same time as he was in Cambridge, and sitting them both in the same month and getting first in both for finals. Although Asa still, I have seen Asa mentioned in print, I think possibly in reviews of things I've written, that the Saltmarsh class had a big influence on him. But anyway, the other thing it did to me, of course, was to encourage me to write it up. And before sometime in the early part of my third year, I'd finished a 5-page typescript that I sent off to economic history, to the editor, who was then, I don't know who the editor was.
It wasn't Keynes himself, was
Yes, I had, right, because that's right, because I remember later when I was working in the economics department here, I outsmarted my economics colleagues by saying, look, I've got a letter from Keynes. They said, what? I said, yes, he wrote to me when I was a student. So, and yes, I've lost it, unfortunately. It was inside my copy of The Economic Consequences of the Peace that I treasured. I much admired Keynes as a man, and particularly the way he was very good to his students, and you could always see King's chaps being taken to the theatre by him, and he had this charming ballet wife, and I went to ballet, and in fact I paid for my seats and they were taken. But coming back to so it disappeared to economic history. I had acceptance from Keynes, and then two things happened. The war went on, economic history suspended publication, and there was some backstairs amalgamation of it with the Economic History Review.
They packed it up, but the Royal Economic Society gave us a substantial subvention.
So
to the
mine
society
didn't appear
after the war.
and the war was on, and I think I'd left Cambridge before I dared write again to Keynes or to his successor, saying, very politely, you know, you accepted my thing, but I can't see any, doesn't seem to have come out. So I did have the distinction of writing something in my second year into my third that was due for publication, and I was rather pleased with. I had no academic ambitions then. I really wanted to be a social worker at that stage, but I had a writing ambition. I editor of the school magazine. I used to write the most terrible short stories, which I'm desperately ashamed of. And luckily, the number of copies around is limited. Terribly immature and second and third hand. But I always enjoyed the fact of writing. We had an English master who made us watch every sentence we wrote, and I've always liked writing, And the biggest praise I'd ever get in reviews of people to say that I was readable. If I wasn't readable, I'd want to hang myself. And I'd like to execute many of my colleagues who aren't readable. No names. So that's how I got into the profession by the back door without intending.
Did you ever have a period as a research student?
Never. No, I'm totally virgin, totally self-taught. Because the war came, I wanted to be a social worker. When I registered as a conscientious objector, I was given exemption on condition that I went to do social work. I'm very happy to do this.
You were interviewed by Sir John Clapham.
Yes, the tribunal had Clapham as is chairman. Yes, writing after the event. It's amazing that there was this little boy of 20, I was 20 presumably, sitting. It was an old police station in Newnham, I think, and we stood in the dock symbolically. And Clapham was up on the bench with two other laymen, adjudicating our genuineness. I never seen him, and he had never seen me. Nor did I know, of course, that he was the first man to teach economic history in Leeds, and it was because of Clapham that we had economic history here, and that I became the first occupant of his chair, of a chair. He had a chair of economics here. Amazing that we should both have been in the same room that day, without realising what fate was going to do. Later, I'm still waiting to see what it's got to do in the few months that are left to me, as it were. You never know. Fate has an incredible twist. But wait a minute, may I finish?
Yes, surely.
You say I wasn't... I had no supervision. I was totally self-taught, but the enthusiasm for playing with documents and writing about them, that was already planted in me. And I was always going to do it as a hobby, I suspect. And then there was a fallow period just before finals. I was bored stiff with revision. I always hated revision. I have a curious lazy sort of temperament. If I don't learn something when I read it first, or told about it first, I know it. I mean, I'm sorry. If I understand it at first, I understand it. If it's in me, it's in me. If it's not in me, no amount of swatting and revision ever get it into me. And year after year, I'd go into exams with days of revision wasted, because those weren't the things I tackled questions on when it came to the poo. So it was 2 or 3 weeks before finals. Beautiful weather, I remember. And while these other lads were rowing hard, I went off to the university library and explored the parts I'd never been in before. Now, probably the map area, starting with the map area, then the manuscripts area, and then in the current accessions book there, there were about 30 consecutive entries detailing a collection of documents deposited in the previous year or two by a local solicitor whose firm had been the solicitors for about half the enclosure, the parliamentary enclosures of Cambridgeshire. I'd heard vaguely about parliamentary enclosure because there was another eccentric about whom, if I start telling stories, it'll take too long. The fellow of Emmanuel, who gave the most incredibly, I suppose they were good, but useless lectures you could possibly have. He must have prided himself on never saying anything that would be of any use to a candidate for an examination. And in the third year, he was covering the 1688 to 1914 period. But I remember him saying, he was a funny man, not funny, amusing, sad in some ways, a great friend of Charles Wilson, much admired by Charles. He came to the same school, I think, in Market Raisin or something, was it?
Yes,
Something like that. The Eton of East Anglia. And he, and I think Bernard Manning, my senior tutor,
Parliamentary enclosure.
he was a wonderful debunker. The reason I'm hesitating is I have all these silly slips of memory in which I've forgotten his surname. Yes. Oh!
I know who you're talking about.
No, Tory.
Yeah, I've forgotten his name. I will remember it.
But he was celebrated, apparently. He never wrote anything, or virtually nothing. These lectures were useless. He was apparently a very good tutorial man for stimulating people, but his way of stimulating, just to say something terribly unorthodox. I mean, I've learned later that it was the A.J.P. Taylor and other type of attitude. You find what everybody believes in. And at that time, of course, it was also... We haven't put your...
No, it's all right, it's all right.
God, we better go.
No. It's all right, I'm keeping an eye.
You're keeping an eye, are you? You see him run out and tell him we've got it.
Yes.
Ooh. The subject of that, ladies and gentlemen, on the recording is a car outside and the permit. So he just sneered at all the accepted things. At that time, of course, it was what you might call Toryism. It was respectable, moderate Marxism.
He was very right-wing.
Very right-wing.
Isn't he the man who, wherever he was in the world, he used to send his laundry back to Emmanuel by post in order to have his laundry done every week?
I haven't heard that. I wouldn't be surprised. Actually, it looked as though he never washed his laundry, but I'm not... He was rather scruffy in his appearance. But what he said was, of course, all these historians looking around to see who exploited the labourers and the rest of it in the Middle Ages, in the 19th century, we should take parliamentary enclosure. What, the landowners, is there? The landowners didn't... They always had to meet the bills of their surveyors and their solicitors. And good realism, you see, he said. This line always was. So the people who made the money were, as usual, the professional classes. And he was also incredibly anti-Semitic, which was very rare those days. And he used to tap his nose in a most unpleasant way. Hell, this man's name. I suppose most of them were Jews calling themselves Englishmen, he said. Very unpleasant. Anybody who made money. Anyway, but he'd put enclosure commissions into my head, you see. So when I saw these, I thought, oh, I'll turn these over. And I spent 3 weeks continuously, when I should have been revising, making notes fast, because I knew I was going to leave Cambridge and the war was on and I should never go back again, I thought. So I filled notebooks with notes on these, and that was the second article I ever published about 6 years later, when as an amateur to the Economic History Review, I sent the Commissioners of Enclosure article, the same number. Is that the same number that? Can't remember if it was the same number or not that William Hoskett had also published in. So I had 2 pieces. I think strictly I had 3 pieces in amateur in the review, because the Ridge and Furrow one, the one that caused a slight apprehension in Eric Kerridge for my sanity, yes, I was doing the proofs of those when in my first weeks up here in 1948 as a young professional economic historian. But between the end of the war, between 1941 and 1948, I was an amateur. So I got 3 articles out of non-supervised research. And of course, in the wonderful days of 1948, when the universities were expanding, when Clapham in another
with another persona's report on the need for the social sciences to develop, persuaded the government to put money into departments, or the University Grants Committee, to put money into departments who would enlarge things like economics and economic history. Leeds decided it wanted a full-time economic historian and advertised, and by that time I wasn't tired of social work. I was enjoying myself in adult education, but it was rather nice to think of. And I'd been going over to see Hoskins once or twice in Leicester from Rugby, where I was, and I rather liked the look of the academic life, and the kind of life that Hoskins was beginning to do the kind of things I like doing, and I like teaching, so the idea of teaching people things I was interested in was quite fun. So I was tempted to apply for a couple of jobs, 3 or 4 jobs. UCL turned me down.
Oh, really?
I think, I'm not sure, could Arthur Taylor have gone about then?
Yes, he could.
In 47?
Yes, I think he did. I think he did.
I think Arthur got the job.
Yes. And he later was to be your colleague here.
Sorry? Later he came
later
here.
to be your colleague here.
Later came into the School of History as a chair of modern history here.
But you came to...
Glasgow turned me down.
Oh,
I can't remember who got it. This is all in about 4 consecutive weeks, these things happens.
But rather by chance, you came to Leeds to represent post-war expansion in the social sciences.
Absolutely by chance.
And then you liked it so much, you stayed here ever since.
Never wanted to go away. They paid me well, they cosseted me.
Did you expect, when you came in 48, you obviously much enjoyed what you were doing and saw this as an opportunity to be paid to do what you'd previously just done for enjoyment, I take it.
Yes, yes.
But were you aware that you were on the edge of this enormous boom period of the subject through that great period of growth that we see in the figures for membership of the society all through the 50s and 60s?
Yes, I think so. Yes, perhaps even more when I was inside at the bottom, as it were, when I was a lecturer, and then a few years later people here and there began to get chairs. And some of my equals, as it were comically concerned with the chances of their own promotion. There was one whose name I'd better not mention here in public, who was a comic figure, in that his whole... There was a Bristol conference, I remember, in which I saw the worst example of this, which year Bristol would be. He's now looking it up to tell us.
I look it up. Bristol must have been 74.
No.
Earlier. 55.
55.
55.
When I didn't get a chair till 60, that's right, 55 or so.
55.
And this chap already had chairs in his mind. And he was a man who believed that we were in Italy, not in England, that it was all nepotic, that you only had to know the right people and cross the right palms with silver, and you'd eventually get it, you see. So he used to go around. Conferences were all a bit of... I'll say 2 things about conferences. I'll come back to another one in a minute. But the one thing about conferences, again, which has changed in time, is that they were slave markets, in that older people and younger people, people listened around, and if a person read a paper, or the exhibitionists made an exhibition of themselves, or people made an exhibition of themselves thinking that this was a way to display talent, and there were some who always did that, ask the first question, say the most outrageous thing, we can name some of those. Quite frightening to a youngster like myself who was modest and honest. Anyway, I remember walking from the station up to Bristol University with Herbert Finberg and this other chap. And Herbert was taunting this man by telling him quite untrue stories about how he'd heard that X and Y had nearly got this, and that the vacancy somewhere else was about to be filled by... And you could see poor old this other chap's face falling all the time. And I never got involved in that. Oh, and once... Yes, I will emphasise, I think, how at the period of expansion there really were jobs for the good boys. There weren't jobs for the boys in the bad sense. People who really were any good, there was a pretty good chance that they would get somewhere sooner or later. At lecture level, I'm not talking about the chair boom or the chair inflation of the last 10 years. which I better not mention too publicly, sardonically, a debasement of the coinage took place in another sense, but we all believe there was no debasement of the coinage in our ego of the early 1950s. So there was a slave market element. I remember one aspect of it. The only time I was ever involved in slave marketing, when I had anything to offer anybody and really wanted a good slave, I remember sitting on the side of a bed at a conference in Barry Supple's room. And I knew Barry from meeting at a conference a little bit before. I'd heard what he talked about. I was very attracted by his subject. Excellent subject, and he was an excellent talker. In that it was clearly a lad who was going to do well, and he hadn't got a job. He was finishing his PhD, and I said, "If you apply, would you ever be interested in Leeds? Because we shall be advertising very soon." And he said very sorrowfully, virtually nothing would persuade him to come as far away from London or Oxbridge as Leeds. But it'd been wonderful to have had Barry, and the whole of economic history in Leeds would have been different had we been able to keep him. But anyway, we didn't get him. And that was my only attempt at slave driving.
Buying.
What's the word?
Slave buying.
Slave buying. The other thing about conferences I ought to mention is that I was first. You mentioned the first conference. Have we mentioned the first conference I went to?
We haven't mentioned it yet, because the first residential conference was at Birmingham in 1950. But I can't find anybody who can remember anything about that.
No, I can't. But I do remember the first post-war, non-residential, one-day conference in London that I went down to.
Oh, yes.
Because I joined the society by then. And I really ought to say, looking at your graph, that the purely selfish reason why I joined the society was not to come to its conferences, but to make sure that I got a copy of the review in which I knew I was going to publish. I mean, it was simply that. The society as such meant nothing to me, because it was mainly crowded with people from strange places like LSE, where we were meeting, or Oxbridge, and the papers are sometimes too abstruse to be intelligible, or but it was not a very as I say, I was a youngster. I was still an amateur outside this work. I was a social worker who'd come down on a day train ticket. But the society I joined right from the beginning. I think I must have joined the society very early in the war, very, very early. I would imagine when I heard that they were going to print my first piece in its delayed state. Oh yes, because I didn't finish the earlier bit of the story, did I? That I wrote to Keynes, or to Keynes' successor, to say, where's it gone to, because you've accepted it for economic stroke history. And they said two things. That it's been amalgamated with our review, but also that all the correspondence and everything had been lost. It had been in somebody's damaged in the war somehow. I don't know who it would be.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't Eleonora, was it? No, I don't think her house was. Don't know.
No.
There was a kind of caretaker.
Well, the only person who has... Charles Wilson's house was entirely destroyed at some point in the war when he worked for the Admiralty in London. And Charles has a dramatic story about coming home from work one day and seeing just a hole where his...
Who was this?
Charles Wilson. And everything that Charles owned up to 1942 or 43 was totally destroyed, including the textile samples that he'd stolen from the Gemeente Archief in Amsterdam. Everything that he owned up to something like 1942 was just destroyed.
No.
That was Charles, but I don't think he was. Of course, he became editor of the Economic History Review eventually, but not until the 60s.
Who was editor?
Poston was the editor during the war and kept it going. Yes. And Poston's house in Cambridge, as far as I know, is still there.
Yes. No. And I don't think while Poston was in... Did Poston go on editing it while he was in the civil service?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes, Poston kept it going. Indeed.
Oh well. Whoever it was then said, if you happen to have a carbon, we should be delighted to publish it, you see. So luckily I found a carbon.
A carbon? That's a wonderful dated... Yes,
it's an old word, I suppose.
You saved it on disc.
Yeah, I saved it on disc. That's right. The carbon. So that would be the point at which I joined the society.
Right.
And very soon after that, there was this first conference.
The daily one, yes. Well, there had been 46.
The day one.
Well, there had been 46, 47, 48, 49. There were 4 post-war
I went to all those then.
Just at day ones.
Yes.
And then, of course, they started to be residential in
Then
Birmingham.
I went to the Birmingham
which you're not sure. Did you go to it, do you think? And I know you've been a pretty regular attender. You've been.
Those days I used to go
You can't have
every
been
year.
to all of them, can you?
No, because...
But you've been
no,
to
in
pretty
more recent
most of
years...
them.
Oh no, even before retiring, I was slightly choosy, partly because there were rival conferences that I wanted to go to, partly because I'd become a part administrator here as chairman of the School of Economic Studies, and it wasn't easy to get away. And I suppose I was slightly bored. The kind of topics I was interested in by then were not the kind of topics that people were talking about at conferences.
What could you identify what sort of changes you've seen happen? Thinking of well, that's really 50 years of conference, half a century, Maurice.
Yes.
It's half a century of
Half a
conference.
century. Yes.
Obviously, the number of people grew, but were they still talking the same language over that 50 years?
No, because I think, as you can tell from the pages of the review, hardly a technical economic term was talked about in conversation and in papers. They were still very much, I suppose, what people like Nick Kratz would call gutless economic history. It was history that historians could teach and understand. I was of that generation. We were quantitative. I mean, the masses of tables and graphs and things I've written, as well as maps. I don't despise quantities, but I've never been algebraic. And the coming on of econometrics, econometric history and that sort of thing, and the Americanization of it, really defeated me. It didn't drive me out, but I used to come more irregularly. And there were many other conferences, if I was going to 2 a year,
Yeah.
I prefer to go to.
Yes.
So I haven't been regular in maybe the last 20 years, no, certainly the last 10, I think. Well, I retired 16 years ago. I don't suppose I've been more than 4 times in those 16 years. But I went to Oxford 2 years ago, isn't it?
I remember.
And
yes.
so it's not just the prodigal son returning
Yes.
to Glasgow.
Glasgow. Eric Hobsbawm is coming to Glasgow,
Yes.
I'm told too, and he says in his contribution in this volume that he, at one point, I think just before the war, maybe it was just after the war, he paid the sum of £9 to become a life member of the Economic History Society, and he says, a very nice comment from a Marxist, he said it's the best investment he ever made.
Yes.
Did you invest £9?
No,
becoming
I
a life
could
member?
afford £9.
Successive treasurers, of course, have been very.
I don't know how you can manage.
Sadly
he was
counting.
making money in journalism, I expect.
Sadly counting the number of
Yes.
people who became life members, which of course is.
Are they there, the names?
No, it doesn't list the names. No,
It's a secret
No.
list, I suppose.
Well, I
isn't
don't
it?
know if I think the treasurer probably opens the Times, hoping to find them in the obituary columns every day.
Yes.
Because if you bought a membership for £9
Yes,
in
wonderful.
1946.
I don't know what it was. Do you know what it was in those days?
Well, Eric Hobson says he paid £9.
No, I mean, what was the annual subscription?
I think it was 10 and 6.
How much?
10 and 6, I think.
3, and
For a time.
you've got 3 numbers of the review for that.
2 originally.
2.
Then it became 3.
Wonderful value.
Then it became 4.
Very
It's still
good
got,
things in those early volumes. Yes. When did I last? Oh, I read. I think when I last. I kept on getting. I mean, I don't despise the review, and I still think it's jolly good value. I read it. I try to read. I don't. Let's be honest. I don't try to read every word of it, or every decimal point of it. But I always read the reviews, the book reviews, and the summaries of the year's work. And of course, they didn't print summaries in those early days, so you had to read the whole article to find out what it was about, if you could. I'm trying to think when I last contributed. I know I haven't deserted the review deliberately. I'm trying to think when I last. It was the.
where are you?
It was the insurance article, I think. But my mind is so confused that the gap between writing something, getting it published, and now is so wide. And so that this is a bibliography from the end of the Fish Rift.
Yes.
I'm going mad not to find it. I last appeared in the Agricultural History Review slightly more recently than that. That was 1992, yes, I survived till 1992 as a publishing agricultural historian. I think what's happened to...
Yeah.
Anyway, go on, please. You want to ask me?
Well, we've actually covered most of the topics that I wanted to raise.
You want to go
sure
there?
there's
You're
lots
worried
more.
about the clock too.
Partly I'm worried about the clock, but I've covered these earlier points, and of course you're going to be actually there, so you'll be able to speak
hope
up
to
and
be
say
there.
anything. And I know
Yes,
you want to tell this story about Oxford in 1951.
I'm very small,
And
yes, slightly amusing,
I shall
but
prompt
story.
you about that. If
Not
I may.
illuminating about the profundities of the subject, or
No, but I shall, if it's interesting,
Anything like that.
I'll prompt you about it there. Is
and
there,
everything else I think I've written I wanted to say.
is there anything that you would have liked me to have asked, that you would have wanted me to ask about that I haven't asked you about
No, I
yet?
think we got round. I do want to
Let me
emphasise
look
the
at-
important point of joining the society in order to get the review.
Right.
And you see, that must
Yes.
always have been so, because if you look at the numbers there, that even at our peak, the number of those who would come to the conference is fractional. Therefore, there must have been some other attraction, and it could only have been the review.
Yes.
And possibly, therefore, the decline in numbers may have something to do with several things. And one of them, I think, probably the nature of the review, as well as the rise and fall of the subject within history and the politics of economic departments and things.
Yes. That sounds like a good note on which to go out. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Giorgio. Molto grazie.
Prego.
Prego.
Very good.